Om Sahanā-Vavatu, Sahanā-Bhunaktu, Saha Vīryam Karavā-vahai, Tejas Vinā Vadhīta Mastu, Vidvishā-Vahai. Om Shānti, Shānti, Shāntihi. And below Satguru Shivananda Maharaj Ki, for all the saints and sages of all the traditions. Jai Hari Om Tat Sat. Okay. So we'll come back to this wonderful exploration of mind and ego. And the name of the book, again, Mind Management and Raja Yoga. And several people have joined some of the discussions online, have asked for the name of the book, and so that's it. And then I posted a link this morning for Abe Books, which seems to be the least expensive way to get it right now. Just a quick recap. We'll start with that. So the terms not as important, so we can relate to them in English, of course, as well. But this is classical, traditional. And the two terms that are being used for mind in toto, mahat, which I haven't heard as much. Antakarana is typically the one that we deal with. And antakarana meaning the inner instrument. So the totality of mind, including the four functions of mind, which are from the most subtle to the most gross, ego, or ahamkara. I was searching, Googling for something specific on ahamkara yesterday or the day before, and I saw this Indian cartoon series with a villain named Ahamkara.
So true.
And big villain. And many, I don't know how many episodes, but many. So for most subtle meaning most pervasive, meaning the hardest to catch, and the hardest to jettison. And then chitta, memory. And interesting in this view being shared here, memory includes both the experience and the rating of the experience, which are stored together. And it's clear that they arise together, although the rating can change based upon future discoveries and work on the pleasure-pain scale.
Yes.
And then next, most gross, or next least subtle, is the intellect, or the buddhi. And the term vivek, or discrimination or discernment, applies to the buddhi. Buddhi is the rationating faculty, the questioning faculty, the faculty that works things out, including working out one's awakening. And then the fourth is the most gross, is manas. And so this morning we'll discuss specifically buddhi and management of buddhi. But first, we had just covered ego, and then we also covered chitta in terms of management of. And as a reminder for ego, in terms of what we're dealing with ego, the expressions, what he's calling here the expressions of ego, four ego expressions. And this is life's work to visualize, but also to end egoism. We were discussing yesterday, and to share here and with you, we were talking about the term egoism or egoism. Sometimes we'll hear control the ego, and yes, there's work in controlling the ego, but it's a relative relationship. That is, I'm here and ego is here. But the thing is, ego is actually much closer than that, and ego is surrounding me, and as if interpenetrating me. Not really, but as if. It's so close to me as soul that and the four expressions. Avidya, which is ignorance, and it's an action of the ego to suppress knowledge. So all four of these are active expressions, they're not passive expressions. So it is that which suppresses knowledge in any way, but specifically spiritual knowledge. And we can see it, and we can see it at work if we look. And then ego is guided by Maya, illusion, and identifies with Maya. So the projection, the appearance as reality, or taking the appearance as reality. That's what's being discussed there. And then the third is abhinivesha, which is a very interesting one that we've been dealing with here this last week, always really, but speaking of and catching, which is this fear of dying, but it's not fear of dying in the traditional sense. It is that, but it's also more subtle than that. And so here the words are insecurity and fear of losing one's hold on oneself, the fear of letting go, of dying. Mm-hmm. So this anxiety and anxiety attacks and all that, these are directly related to this. This is what we're dealing with. You can also say the fear or insecurity about being in the moment, being present to whatever's arising. And understanding that what we take ourselves to be is a mental construct, holding on to that. So whatever our view is of ourself, our goals, etc., etc. So great fear in terms of letting go of any of this. And then the fourth expression is this asmita, or it says knowledge that I exist or I am, but it's also the protection of the idea of I am. So I am. We were talking about, to catch it, if we have an experience, or when we have an experience of deep meditation, and deep meditation experience is not just on the mat. Deep meditation experience is also there in karma yoga, when you're actually genuinely serving someone else and you lose yourself in the process, right? Which is the more common experience that we have in meditation, where you forget yourself. You also lose the I-ness. I falls away. I goes out of the room, as it were.
The other.
Yeah. There's not even an other. There's just the work. There's just the whatever it is that we're engaged in. Yeah. So to say I lose myself, that's really an experience of transcending this I amness. Okay, so we'll continue. And then we've stepped into this is recap, we've stepped into and I should say for anyone joining us here this morning and you haven't been in the other discussions, we've really been taking a dive into each of these areas that we've just covered. So if you want to go back, it's cool. And these talks, just like the Bhagavad-gīta and Thought Power, will also be through the support of our dear Mukti-ji. They will also be on YouTube. Okay, now control of, or management of. With ego, the technique given is sanyam, and sanyam is restraint. And we were just talking about ego, transcending the ego, or sometimes it's saying kill ego. You can't actually, but you can restrain the ego, and you can finally, through the work of buddhi, through the work of the intellect, the identity can be changed. But the practice is sanyam, or restraint. And so yesterday we had the term kill egoism, which is really more accurate. Egoism is this relationship between the soul and the ego, where the soul is firmly identifying with the ego. And so this relationship where the soul takes its reality from that which is false. And so to kill egoism really is to end that relationship. It's not that the feeling won't be there. And you can catch what this means in a way, because there are ideas that we deal with that we know are not beneficial. Have we ever had any of these? And it's been a practice for us to engage in it. The addictions in particular are good examples of that. Various addictions. Yeah, so we were engaged in it, we were identified with it, and then in the intellect we start asking the questions about whether this is really beneficial and it's really the right thing to do or not, and we of course we discover it's not, and the resolve, we take the resolve and we do the work, and you see it because what you're doing at that point is at that point the habit is still there and the urge is still there, correct?
Yes.
Swamiji,
Om.
can I ask something?
Yes.
The word egoism, so in Spanish we have egoísmo, and in French egoísme. And the word translates literally as selfishness. So it's
Selfishness,
no
yes.
other word for selfishness, it's egoísmo.
Yes.
So is there in English a difference between egoism and selfishness?
No, it's just we're looking at it from a little bit of a deeper perspective when we say it's really the relationship between the soul and the ego. Where egoism is ended is in the denial of that feeling of separation, or the renunciation of that feeling of separation.
Okay.
So, I am not that. So, but not just the statement, I am not that, turning the life around to the big S, it's the little s. So this sanyam or restraint is the same approach that we take to that tendency or that habit, correct? And then, do you ever notice a time when there's no urge? Actually, you notice a lot of time where there's no urge. And through the restraint of it and developing a more healthy relationship with life, then one notices that urge less and less and less, correct?
Dissolves.
So in the same way, that concept of sanyam with the ego sense, in the same way, you can learn to discover that it's destroying your life, accepting it as real.
Knowing that.
And it's destroying your relationship with life. We could say your life, but your relationship with life is your life.
So restrained that way. Instead of flow.
Your relationship with life is your life.
Oh.
Life is full. Life is infinite. Life is varied. The expression of life is countless, infinite. Life is eternal. But the ego idea is it's limited. It's short. It's about me as a separate being. It's about my pursuit. That's the ego idea, like that. I need to protect and conquer. The war way, yes? What we see in Eastern Europe right now. I need to protect what I have and conquer more. So that's the ego sense, yes? And it's doing both. At the same time as it's actively veiling us from knowledge. So there's nothing about it actually that's beneficial. People argue sometimes about the beneficial nature of ego, but that's Western psychology. But that's imagining some place where in some way it could be beneficial. And certainly it'll lead the charge in terms of success, worldly success, but it's hard to see where it's beneficial living a life separated from life.
Yeah.
Swamiji, if we may.
Yes.
It's beneficial to help us recognize that where self really is.
It's beneficial in the same way any mistake is beneficial. It will help us to go beyond. But the relationship with life is skewed, it's limited, it's false. Because it's putting forward the opposite of what life really is.
Yeah.
Right? Life is unlimited, it says limited. Life is eternal, it says death, that you die. Yeah. That you're born and that you die, and that you're bracketed or bookended, it says. Life is unity, and it says life is about me. Yes? Life is spirit, expression of spirit, and it says materiality. It's about the things that you get and the things that you are, and everyone you see is a thing, and what can you acquire. Life is surrender, and it says victory. Victory is in maintaining and acquiring.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing you feel, the things you feel, you think you
Are things. They're actually things. But it apportions a reality to them. So all of these four expressions are limiting us from life when we abide in them, or when we accept them or live according to them. So, okay. And then chitta we talked about, and so anyone can recap. That was Friday morning. So we move to buddhi, or intellect. And here's what's shared. The third aspect of mahat is buddhi. Buddhi is of two types, firm and negotiable. See if this makes sense. He'll walk us through. The firm buddhi denotes firmness of nature, idea, thought, and knowledge, meaning you are not oscillating, vacillating, and fluctuating in your thoughts, ideas, or perceptions. That firmness and clarity is the decided intelligence, and he provides Sanskrit term nishchayatmika buddhi, the stable buddhi. The fluctuating nature is vyavasayatmaki buddhi. Most of the time, it is the vyavasatmika buddhi, the negotiable buddhi, that's active in you. The next moment, there are people who come to me and discuss a problem. The next moment, they will discuss the same problem with somebody else, seeking their advice and guidance. Then they will go to a third person and say, I have this problem. Swamiji told me this, and the other person told me that. What is your opinion on the subject? In such cases, the person can never connect with anybody because they're only moving from one person to another. There's no faith, trust, or understanding. If there was a little bit of understanding, they would appreciate the answers and solutions that were given. In the absence of understanding, buddhi becomes the cause of greater confusion. Vyavasayatmika buddhi is like the bee which goes to every flower to gather pollen. Some people may say that it is collecting the best from everything. If you collect the best from everything or everyone, which best are you going to use? That will be the cause of confusion. The negotiable buddhi has a bargaining quality. It's looking for the best buy at the lowest cost. The determined buddhi has a resolute quality, and its aim is clear. Can we see the difference between the two? Yeah, inner guru is not actually buddhi, but yes, you can say in relationship. You can say in relationship. In the firm, yeah. And so this is spoken of by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, and he says the one of firm mind or firm intellect no longer wanders. So it's in this is second chapter. Many branched and endless are the thoughts of the irresolute. So in this negotiable state, you see it's endless. Because how many people can you check in with for the opinion? It's the way forward. No. And what are the possibilities in any situation? If you look out, they're endless. Yes? And so he says very specifically, many branched and endless are the thoughts of the irresolute. Irresolute, not resolved. So what he's discussing here is negotiable buddhi. Does that make sense? In other words, there's no end to it. And there's no end to the karmas, and there's no end to suffering, and there's no end to this world. This world, this earth gets hit by the meteor and you take a birth somewhere else, some other earth. Countless. The ego sense has an idea of end, but in truth, there's not an end. And if you're caught up in this negotiable buddhi, there's no end of the thoughts. And so there's no peace, and there's no resolution. There's no solution. People are looking for a solution, but we keep asking for it. Yeah. I remember I worked when I was in the worldly life and in tech business. I worked for an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur mind is like this. It's always negotiating, trying to find the best deal at the best price. And so, but if you lived in his mind, and I did, it's a terrible place because there's no firm ground anywhere.
Peace.
So there's no peace. No peace whatsoever. There's always something better. So that's the negotiable buddhi. Okay. And so you want it to be firm, but you don't want it to be firm on a false idea, because that's suffering also. So here, buddhi management is discussed through vivek and vairagya. Buddhi has to be managed through discrimination and detachment. The force to transform buddhi is viveka, the discriminative ability. There is a saying that the royal swan has the ability to separate milk from water. Perhaps it is only an idea, or perhaps it is a reality, but it indicates the application of viveka buddhi, the discriminative ability. Know what is appropriate and what is inappropriate, which is really the growing up part of life. Know what is, and he says this wants to be the function of buddhi. So how to apply this discriminative faculty or this intellect? Learn what is appropriate and inappropriate. Look at virtue versus vice. Look at them. Analyze them. So make choices in terms of where you wish to be and how to get there. So intelligent application of the discriminative faculty. And that's really generally speaking, that's the start. We've been discussing this waking up, growing up, cleaning up. And this is specifically talking about growing up, right? Using it to learn what's beneficial and what's not beneficial. He says, when buddhi is not used properly, it becomes clouded and confused. And when it is used properly, it becomes sharp. So look at the difference. If you are trying to find who is the best house designer, who is the best person that could give me a meditation room, who's the best person that could do it. Your innegotiable buddhi. Yes? And it becomes very cloudy and confused because when you're looking for the best, you'll never find it. And by the way, you'll think that you have it, the best husband. You'll think that you have it, and then they say something that makes you feel small, and you say, there's better than this. And that there's better than this, that's that negotiable buddhi.
Yes.
And now you're back on the chase. But it becomes cloudy and confused. Does that make sense? Have we had that experience? Life seems confused. It doesn't make any sense. And that's one use of the buddhi. And it's the common use of the buddhi. It is, you look around, you look at our own lives, and we look around at friends, family, and the world, we see that's the common use of the intellect. Now, you want to study what is true, or you want to study what is beneficial. How can I benefit? How can I be of benefit? And you take the virtues and vices, for example, and you make that the study. Can you see that clarity comes? Can you see little soul in the sun? I want to be forgiveness. I want to be forgiveness. And clarity on why and how and all of this, yes? So can you see that when pointed specifically at sattvic pursuit, knowledge, and even the scientific mind, generally, the buddhi is clear. If you have a conversation with a physicist, you don't get much cloudiness. You get clarity. Their conclusions may not be correct, but the mind itself is functioning in a clear way.
Swamiji, question. So the ego, the ego doesn't die. Egoism does. Ego does not. One reason is the buddhi is required to constantly keep you on point.
Yeah, I'll tell you the truth of the matter. It all dies because none of it exists separately. It's just all God. These are qualities, or they are principles. Principles. They're all as if they're not what. Nothing is what it appears to be. Even the ego. When we chant the Devi Mahatmyam, the last line of it, Bhranti. And how does it go?
Confusion.
Yeah, no, we know the meaning of the word, but the line. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Bhranti Samstita Namastasye 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 Namo Namaha. So the feeling of separation exists as a feeling in the field. How does it die to you? When you see who it is, when you know who it is, and when you live in it. Yes? So we're talking about relative stuff when we're talking about the mind and management of the mind. Does that make sense? We're talking about relative stuff.
It does.
And so practically speaking, you're working with the ego. And practically speaking, you want to address the ego in a way where you have clarity, you see it arising, you understand what it's doing, and you work to undercut it. And what's the fruit, as it were? Freedom, you could say like that. Knowledge of what is. And then we were looking at the bhumikas, yes? The 7 bhumikas, so you can see where that is there as well. You pick up a hammer in order to do a thing, in order to hammer a nail. Maybe this will be helpful. You pick up a hammer. So that assumes that the hammer pre-exists. Somewhere in the world it pre-exists. What's the difference between a hammer and a thought?
Objects. That's all.
The hammer is more gross and the thought is more subtle.
Other than that,
Nothing.
no difference. So you pick up a hammer and you hammer the nail, and then what do? Do you keep walking around with the hammer?
No,
Even when you don't have a nail?
put it down.
Is that helpful?
Very much.
So you can say it exists, you can say it doesn't exist. Those are different perspectives on the same.
Got it.
You can say, yes, it exists, but it's actually Brahman. And you develop your relationship with Brahman and you set it down.
This one,
So, well, it's helpful to see thoughts as objects. And so it's not a denial of their existence as it were. It is what it is. But you stop using it. You stop picking it up. Ego is like the hammer. So you pick up the hammer in order to hammer the nail into the piece of wood in order to build a structure. If you want to tear the structure down, what do you pick up? Do you pick up a hammer? I guess you do, and you can do that, but you use the claw end. So you're still using a tool. If you want to be done with the building of the house, what do?
You don't pick up the tool?
You set the hammer down. And so if you look at all of the thoughts, in a way it's the same. You bring counter thoughts. What's the technique called again, Harry? Pratipakṣa-bhavana, our favorite. You bring the counter thought, which is like using the claw on the backside of the hammer. Yeah. Because you built something and fine, you wanted to explore the world. And so ego is the tool that does that. And you want to build a successful life. And ego is the tool that does that. But at some point you discover, I don't want this, not this way anymore. And so you use the appropriate tools, which are the tools in yoga, in order to unwind it. To do the introspection and to change it, and to take the outgoing mind and make it an incoming mind. Take the mind that tends to go in the gutter and make it a mind that goes into heaven. Yes. And take this instrument that tends to want to build a separate life and have it build instead a view of the unity, the all-pervasive unity, and serve that all-pervasive unity. So all of this is possible. This is the management of the mind. And then finally, you set it down. But you have to have really done the work before you set it down. Right? You really have to have unwound it. You really need a reliable instrument that will go in and up. That will serve the unity here. And then you can let it be. And just like the hammer, you say, okay, and set it down. Oh.
So we can use Pratipakṣa-bhavana also to remove the feeling of separation, like bringing opposite thoughts because of unity.
Yeah, you can use it. And then what's being discussed here is vivek, and we'll using the buddhi, using the intellect, to see through it, to see that it's false. Again, when you know that a habit, a practice is non-beneficial, how do you come to know that the practice is non-beneficial? Yeah, that's it, discernment. You have to, that's the intellect, isn't it? Yeah, okay. Oh. So you go through the process and you see it, and then you take a resolve, and then you work the plan. Yes, AA and all the tools, yoga and all the tools. You work the plan, of which Pratipaksha Bhavana is a part of the plan and a part of the tool set. Very important part of it. And in this case, what do you discover? You discover that the habit I had, which is to live as a separate entity and to see everyone as separate, it's rooted in a falsehood and it's non-beneficial. Yes? So we would say you use every possible tool when you see that.
It's beauty.
You use every possible tool. So Pratipaksha Bhavana is one of them. Yeah. Use every possible tool to see through it. And here's where he is. And the primary tool in this is the intellect. So he says, the story of Tulsidas is an example. He was married to a wonderful wife, but the problem was that he was totally obsessed with her. Initially, the wife accepted the attention, but eventually she became fed up and one day decided that she needed her own space. She sent Tulsidas to the market, and while he was away, left her parents' home left for her parents' home in another village across the river. When Tulsidas returned and found his wife gone, he became very agitated and asked the neighbors for her whereabouts. They told him. Tulsi thought, how can I live alone in a house without her? I don't know for how long she has gone, and I am desperate. I need to be with her. I will go to her village. Dusk had descended, and it was the time of the monsoon. The rain was pouring down. The river was in spate, and all the ferrymen had locked up their boats and gone home. In the semi-darkness, Tulsi saw a log floating in the river. He jumped in, grabbed the log, paddled, and reached the other side, the other shore. He walked to his in-laws' house in pitch darkness at a late hour when everyone was asleep. His wife's room was on the first floor. How to get there? As he felt around the house, he discovered a rope hanging from the balcony of his wife's room. He grabbed the rope, thinking, my wife is very considerate. She would have realized that I would not be able to sleep in her absence, so she's left the rope hanging for me to come up without disturbing her parents. He climbed up to the balcony and knocked on the door. The wife woke up, opened the door, and saw Tulsi standing there. When Tulsi said to her that he had come to be with her, she said, in this monsoon, with the river in full spate, how did you cross the river? How did you climb up to this balcony? Tulsi told her how. The wife hadn't left any rope hanging, so when they went to check with a lantern, they found what Tulsi thought to be a rope was a huge snake. When they went to see the log, they discovered that it was a bloated human corpse. The wife said, if you had even 1% of love for God, as you do for me, you would be different. And those words hit Tulsi like a ton of bricks. He said, yes, you are right. And from there, he left in search of God. The story indicates that passions and desires take birth from buddhi. Vasanas take birth from buddhi. When desire and passion rage, what is appropriate and what is inappropriate is forgotten, and what should be done and what should not be done is forgotten. There is a saying, Kamatoranam na bhayam na laja. A person who is obsessed and passionate does not know fear or shame. A person who is full of vasanas goes after their fulfillment blindly, and they become the cause of attachment. In order to manage buddhi, you have to detach from those attachments. Here we go. Every individual suffers due to attachment. You will form an attachment for such small things that you may not even be aware of it. Your grandfather may have given you a pen 40 years ago and you hold on to it even though it is totally unusable. You cannot let go of such small things due to your attachment. The method to break away from attachments is cultivating drashta bhava, the attitude of an observer, and making room for anashakta bhava, a non-attached attitude in life. Thus, the way to manage buddhi is cultivating viveka and vairagya. With vairagya, you can know and be the witness of the cause of your attachment, infatuation, desire, need, and dependency. With viveka, you can mold the behavior of buddhi and redirect it in a different and positive direction. Viveka helps to mold the behavior of buddhi. It does not alter buddhi. Buddhi still continues to function in the normal manner. The same desires still manifest, but they are molded. You are able to discriminate between what is your requirement and what is your infatuation. And what is your need and what is your want. At present, you don't have that ability. You don't know what your infatuation is. You don't know what you desire. Viveka gives you the strength and awareness to know, and Vairagya helps to disconnect from the asaktis, that which is causing disturbance, the attachments, the obsessive attachments, he defines, so that buddhi becomes free from one of the grips of Maya and is able to think of some other realities. Okay. We'll close here. Looks like we have 2 more mornings, so we'll review. Ultimately, of course, the viveka, highest use of viveka is the realization of truth. Highest use. But the practical use is what's beneficial and what's not beneficial. What's required and what's not required. This comes back to Peace Pilgrim guidance, one of the preparations even for spiritual path, which is needs analysis. And for anyone really wanting to be free, this is required. You don't want a thing that you don't need. When you see it, really you don't want a thing that you don't need. Because when you have a thing that's surplus, whether it's a desire or a belief, in other words, whether it's a thought thing or a physical thing, when you have a thing that's surplus, it owns you.
Right. You want to protect.
It owns you. It requires maintenance. It requires support, whether it's thought or a physical thing. It's easier to see it with a physical thing. But with a thought, you'll have to defend it. With a belief, you'll have to defend it. The universe will bring someone who has a different belief. And you'll have to maintain it. Does that make sense? You'll have to clean it up, polish it, wax it, present it. You'll have to insure it. In the same way that you would a car, a luxury car, something like that. Does it make sense? Really? I'll share this. When I was walking pilgrimage, there's a corollary here that I'll share. Maybe it's a benefit. So I share this part of the story. When I first made the commitment to walk pilgrimage, I did not have the level of faith of Peace Pilgrim, and that is not so surprising. Mm-hmm. Peace Pilgrim had absolute faith when she started pilgrimage. She walked carrying nothing. She carried a comb, a toothbrush, and a pen, and she asked for nothing. So if you really think about that, you recognize that either she was suicidal, which she was not, or she knew that the needs of a pilgrim would be provided and that she was able to walk and serve. So I didn't have that. I had some faith. And so backpack. And the question that I was dealing with while I was still in India is, what do I have to take? Because whenever Hari, that thing about, the bile rises up in the digestive tract and all of that when fear is coming. And so that's what I was dealing with. Because whenever I thought about trying to walk the way Peace Pilgrim was, then some anxiety attack would come. But I committed. I had to do it, and I told the Lord, whatever you want, and it was clear that this is what was wished. And so the way I dealt with it is I did a needs analysis. what then, in order to actually take those steps, what do I need to have with me and what don't I? And I ended up putting together a list, and it was 25 pounds worth of stuff. And it had a mini tent and some cookware. And I thought, I'll not just have one plate, I'll have two, because I might meet someone and want to cook for them. And as karma yoga and offer and like that. And so I ended up with 25 pounds worth of stuff in a backpack. Not very big, relatively speaking, but like that. And I got back to the US and I put everything in it that I'd gotten. And now my plan was that I would walk with the clear goal. We talked about goals the other day, right? With the clear goal that I would come to the place where I need carry nothing. So I was very much on it and wanting constantly to be looking introspection to see what could I let go of? What could I let go of? And I'll tell you, it helped because that 25-pound pack was too heavy. So the first day I walked, I started out in Monterey and I walked what's the scenic route there? The what mile drive? Okay. It'll come, but it might not come just right this second. But it's the scenic drive through Pebble Beach and all of that. 27-mile drive, something like that. I think that's what it is. So I walked, it was 25 miles about that day, and just exhausted. It was too much stuff. So I went through and set some of it aside. And the next day I had a 17-pound pack like that. And then continued to go and observed, but always, and what was actually helpful, I tell you the truth, was that it was always too heavy. Even when it was 5 pounds, it was too heavy. And this is a kind of subtle awareness. So let's say that you want to carry nothing and you want to have nothing that's not beneficial. Thoughts, desires, beliefs, all of that. They're very heavy, aren't they, Hari?
Yeah.
And very heavy. They cloud life. They separate us one from another. They bring fears and anxieties, and anger can arise with them and all of that. Because in a way they own you. And you have to service them, you have to care for them. I'm just sharing the physical aspect of it with pilgrimage. And so in that way, with the resolve, it was a great aid because I was able to experience too much. And finally realizing anything I carried was too much. And so even the beliefs, all gone. I need this, I need that. I have a home. I need to get back to my people, all of that. All gone. Too much. Too much, all this stuff. Too much. Okay, any other questions or comments? And this is Buddhi, you see. This is... So needs analysis is really good and really... but that's peace, wisdom. Peace is wisdom. Is whatever you have that you don't need owns you. And she would talk about this in her lectures. I can picture her talking in a college class about this. And she said, of course, everyone has different needs depending upon where they are in the life pattern. She said people with family and a child, their needs are greater because they need to provide a place for the children to grow up, space, room to grow, and like this. And she said, for a pilgrim, my needs are very small. Just like that. So she wasn't saying everybody should live at the pilgrim level. And she said, my needs and my wants, they are exactly the same. Like that. You couldn't give me anything I don't need. And then you hear the story of her wanting 3 stamps so that she could mail 3 letters. And someone says, here, I have a whole pack of stamps. And she says, I only need 3. All right, we'll close the final prayers in RT 174, the short version. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Orvai Rukamiva Bandhanam Mritor Mokshiyama Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Orvai Rukamiva Bandhanam Mritor Mokshiyama Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Orvai Rukamiva Bandhanam Mritor Mokshiyama Mritat Om Shānti Shānti Shāntihi. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, let us abide in thee forever and ever. Humble Satguru Shivananda Maharaj Ki, for all the saints and sages of all the traditions.